Maria. Today I'm going to tell you about a very decisive period in Dona Lucilia's life, starting a home. I'm Sister Teresa from the Heralds of the Gospel. Lucilia was already a young lady. Her virtuous aspirations and piety made her strongly inclined to religious life, and she even mentioned her desires to her father, Dr. Antonio. However, her determination was to do God's will before all else. One evening, her father broached the delicate topic of matrimony with his daughter. The years were passing, and he was imagining his daughter growing into a spinster, surrounded by nieces and nephews. She attracted children. She cared deeply for them. They loved her, and she always found a way for each one to feel understood. Her maternal traits were not ignored by her father. Maybe it was time for her to consider starting a family. Lucilia listened to her father with her customary mildness, trusting that he wanted the best for her. He had recently come to know a young lawyer from a well-respected family from Pernambuco, the northern eastern part of Brazil. An intelligent and refined gentleman, Dr. John Paulo Correia de Oliveira. Dr. Antonio considered him a suitable match for his daughter. The decision was hers. He did not want to compel her. Lucilia's stability of temperament was reaching full bloom. She asked for her father for time to think. Only after much prayer and reflection, she gave her father her consent, and the young man was presented to her. She was glad that Providence had revealed its will through her beloved father, and the decision was made. The preparations of a high society wedding. We can imagine the pomp and excitement, invitations, menus, flowers, attire, carriages, decorations, protocol. There was one very important detail in Lucilia's preparations that seems strange to us nowadays. It was quite taken naturally by those involved. Dona Lucilia made her first Holy Communion. I'll explain. Before the pontificate of St. Pius X, the grace of Holy Communion was not extended to children and adolescents. But it wasn't just that. During those times, Brazilians were mainly Catholic and attended religious events with piety and devotion, but rarely received the sacraments, because there was an anti-clerical campaign that fomented by the sensible conduct of some ecclesiastics. Many husbands and fathers barred their wives and daughters from confession due to appalling rumors that the confession was used by some priests to make shameful propositions. Dr. Antonio thought that that was the most correct position. Lucilia suffered much with this prohibition. She was so devoted to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and yearned for greater union with him. Holy Communion was naturally the apex of that which she desired. She didn't understand her father's inflexible attitude. She respectfully insisted, but to no avail. The wedding was approaching. One evening her fiancé was visiting her family home, and Dr. Antonio brought up the topic with him. He explained to his future son-in-law that he had never allowed Lucilia to make her first confession, and consequently her first Holy Communion, even though she ardently desired to. Lucilia was listening attentively. Dr. Antonio considered that the situation of the clergy had improved, and he was inclined to allow Lucilia to make her first Holy Communion before the wedding. He transferred the responsibility of the decision to Dr. John Paulo, who looked at his fiancée to see what she wished. With her customary graciousness, she said she would like very much to receive Holy Communion regularly. Thus, on the eve of her wedding, Dona Lucilia made her first Holy Communion in the chapel of Luz Convent. The following evening, July 15, 1906, Dr. Jean Paul and Lucilia were married in the chapel of the diocesan seminary. The well-attended religious ceremony, the distinguished guests, and the beautiful cortege of carriages and cars to the exquisitely decorated Ribeiro dos Santos mansion attracted a crowd of spectators, and is reported in the social chronicles of the following day's newspaper. Their honeymoon trip was to Dr. John Paulo's birthplace, after which the couple settled into a home close to Lucilia's parents' house. Upon entering into the married state, Lucilia's soul became increasingly refined. As concerns, hardships, sorrows, illnesses all multiplied, she would fold her hands and look to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, asking for assistance and remedy. Her father, Dr. Antonio, now had even more admiration for his daughter's life of piety. Even well into her years, the family would allude jokingly to a dialogue between father and daughter during the first period of her marriage. One day, Dr. Antonio said, "My daughter, you must be so bothersome to divine providence." "But why, Papa?" "Because you're talking to him all day long, asking, asking, asking. What do you ask for, by the way?" "I always ask for the same things." "You see, isn't that bothersome?" She herself would smile, telling the story. The couple was blessed with two children, a girl, Rosenda, born in 1907, and the following year a boy, Plinio, whose name was chosen to please his maternal grandmother, Dona Gabriela, who always wanted a Plinio in the family. Shortly before the birth, Dona Lucilia's doctor examined her and concluded that the birth was going to be extremely risky. Either the mother or the child would likely die. He asked Lucilia if she would prefer an abortion to save her own life. Lucilia was outraged by such an inquiry. "Doctor," she said, "that is not a question you ask a mother. It should never have crossed your mind." It seemed that Providence wanted this act of virtue for this resolute and Catholic mother to manifest the degree of her maternal care. On December 13th, 1908, little baby Plinio was born on a Sunday morning, while the bells of the church of Santa Cecilia were calling the faithful to 10 o'clock Mass. He was so small that instead of putting him in the crib so lovingly prepared by Dona Lucilia, he was placed in a large bread basket. He was so fragile. She was concerned for him, and she told her father of her worries. Dr. Antonio took the child in his arms, carried him closer to the window for better light, looked intently at his grandson, and reassured his daughter. This child will live for many years. And so he did. Thus was established the home of Dona Lucilia. Much more than a mother, she sought to be a guardian angel for her children, helping them grow in faith and virtue. Salve Maria.